ASMR reality. Tonight we are going to be doing inaudible whisper, so I won't be offending anybody. Nobody will understand what I'm saying. I'll be reading I've got this much left to go in this book, and I'll be reading its story, Collected Novels. There's 3 different stories in this book, so let's get started. A lot of people recommended that I do another inaudible, so I wanted to make those people happy and give this to you, so here we go. So they painted the house in its original color, fixed up the door, repaired the door floors, and left it as empty as possible for such a glamorous wedding. The twins took the pigs off elsewhere and sanitized the pigsty with quicklime, but even so, it was obvious that there wasn't enough room. Finally, the efforts that were in the dresser in her bedroom, and she asked them also to send a suitcase with everyday clothes. The messenger was in a hurry. Pierre Picari had fallen into a deep sleep when there was knocking on the door. They were three very slow knocks, she told my mother, but they had that strange, shrewd touch of bad news about them. She told her that she'd open the door without turning on the light so that as not to awaken anybody, and saw Bayardo San Roman in the glow of her street light. His silk shirt unbuttoned and his fancy pants held up by elastic suspenders. He had that green color of dreams. Pierre Picard told my mother. Angela Picard was in the shadow, so she saw only her when Bayardo San Roman grabbed her by the arm and brought her into the light. Her satin dress was in shreds and she was wrapped in a towel up to the waist. Pierre Picard thought they'd gone off the road in the car and were lying dead at the bottom of the ravine. Holy Mother of God, she said, answer me if you're still in this world. Bayardo San Roman didn't enter, but softly pushed his wife into the house without speaking a word. Then he kissed Pierre Picard on the cheek and spoke to her in a very deep, dejected voice, but with that great tenderness. Thank you for everything, Mother, he told her. You're a saint. Only Pierre Picario knew what she did during the next 2 hours, and she went to her grave with her secret. The only thing I can remember is that she was holding me by the hair with one hand and beating me with the other with such rage that I thought she was going to kill me. Angela Picard told me, but even that she did with such stealth that her husband and her older brother, asleep in the other rooms, didn't find out about anything until dawn, when the disaster had already been consummated. The twins returned home a short time before 3, urgently summoned by their mother. They found Angela Picard lying face down on the dining room couch, her face all bruised, but she'd stopped crying. I was no longer frightened, she told me. On the contrary, I felt as if the drowsiness of death had finally been lifted from me, and the only thing I wanted was for it all to be over quickly so I could flop down and go to sleep. Pedro Picari, the more forceful of the brothers, picked her up by the waist and sat her on the dining room table. All right, girl, he said to her, trembling with rage. Tell us who it was. She only took the time necessary to say the name. She looked for it in the shadow. She found it at first sight among the many easily confused names from this world and the other, and she nailed it to the wall with her well-aimed dart, like a butterfly with no will, whose sentence has always been written, Santiago Nazar, she said. The lawyer stood by the thesis of homicide and legitimate defense of honor, which was upheld by the court in good faith, and the twins declared at the end of the trial they would have done it again 1,000 times over for the same reason. It was they who gave a hint of the direction the defense would take as soon as they surrendered to their church for a few serenades, but in any case, it wasn't certain that they'd gone. They never would have left here. Maria told me, and knowing her so well, I never doubted it. On the other hand, they did go to wait for him at Claudia Amanda's place, where they knew that almost everybody would turn up except Santiago and his daughter. It was the only place open, they declared to the investigator. Sooner or later, he would have to come out, they told me. After they'd been absolved, tray, but she noticed that the twins were carrying 2 butcher knives wrapped in kitchen rags. And mine, a person, knew why he wanted to kill him so early in the morning. He knows why, Pedro answered. Clotilde examined them seriously. She knew them so well that she could tell them apart, especially ever since Pedro Picarle had come back from the army. They looked like 2 children, she told me. And that thought frightened her because she'd always felt that only children are capable of everything. So she finished getting the jug of milk ready and went to wake her husband to tell him that what was going on in the shop. Don Regular listened, half awake. Don't be silly, he said to her. Those 2 aren't about to kill anybody, much less someone rich. When Clotilde returned to the store, the twins were chatting with Officer Burrow, who was coming with the mayor's bag. She didn't hear what they were talking about, but she supposed that they had told him something about their plan from the way he looked at the knives when he left. Colonel Opponent had just got up a little before 4 and finished shaving when Officer Burrow remembered the Picario brothers attached to him. He settled so many fights between men the night before that he was in no hurry for another one. He got dressed calmly, tied his bow tie several times till he had a perfect head around his neck. He hung the scapular of the congregation of Mary to receive the bishop while he breakfasted on bright lovers smothered with onion rings. His wife told him with great excitement that Biardo St. Roman had brought Angela Picarre back home, but he didn't take it dramatically. Good Lord, he mocked. What will the bishop think? Nevertheless, before finishing breakfast, he remembered that the orderly had just told him. Put the 2 bits of news together and discovered immediately that they fit like pieces to a puzzle. Then he went to the square, going along the street to the new dock, where the houses were beginning to liven up for the bishop's arrival. I can remember with certainty that it was almost 5 o'clock and it was beginning to rain. Colonel Lazaro Aponte told me. Along the way, 3 people stopped him to inform him, in a secret, that the Picario brothers were waiting for Santiago Nazar to kill him. But only one person could tell him where. He found them in Clotilde's store. When I saw them, I thought they were nothing but a pair of big bluffers, he told me, with his personal logic, because they weren't as drunk as I thought. Nor did he interrogate them concerning their intentions, but took away their knives and sent them off to sleep. He treated them with the same selfish assurance with which he had passed off his wife's alarm. Just imagine, he told them. What will the bishop say if he finds you in that state? They left. Clotilde suffered another disappointment with the mayor's casual attitude, because she thought he should have detained the twins until the truth came out. Colonel Aponte showed her the knives as a final argument. Now they haven't got anything to kill anybody with. That's not why. It's to spare those poor boys from the horrible duty that's fallen on them. Because she said she was certain that the Picario brothers were not as eager to carry out the sins as to find someone who would was that this